Welcome friends, the first module in Applied and Economic Zoology is on the topic parasitism. In this module, we will be discussing about parasites, host and the different types of parasite-host interactions. In an ecological community, organisms either directly or indirectly interact with each other for various life processes. They influence individuals of same species, that is intraspecific interaction like the pollination, or with different species, that is interspecific interaction like parasitism. The interactions may be beneficial or harmful or neutral, and may be a permanent association or a temporary one depending upon the duration of relationship. The term symbiosis means living together. Odom in 1971 divided the interactions into two groups as positive interactions and negative interactions. First, let us discuss about the positive interactions. Mutualism and commensalism are positive interactions. Here, the members obtain benefits from one another. In mutualism, both the species derive benefit and neither is harmed. Relationship of plants and their pollinators, association of rhizobium bacteria with leguminous plants are examples for this. In commensalism, one organism is benefited and the other is neither benefited nor harmed. To say about negative interactions, competition, predation and parasitism are negative interactions. Here, one of the organism negatively affects the survival and also the growth of the other organism. There are a huge number of plants and animals that have peculiar parasitic life. Cuscuta is an obligate parasite and it is a plant. Loranthus is a parasitic plant that grows on the woody trees. Viscum is a hemiparasite on several species of trees. The largest flower in the world, Rafflesia, with no roots, shoots, stems or leaves is a parasitic plant, visually unnoticeable until it blooms. The root nematodes are plant parasitic nematodes, and the brood parasitism is a reproductive strategy in which some birds lay their eggs in the nest of the other. So, now let us discuss about parasitology. Parasitology is the study of parasites. It is mainly concerned with the studies of parasitic protozoans, helminths and arthropods, as these are the parasites that mainly cause harm to the animals. Parasites and its host association is a very complex interaction. To say about parasitism, it is an interaction between two heterospecific organisms, meaning an interaction between two different species. Therefore, parasites are organisms which depend on another organism of a different species for food or for shelter and other vital physical and physiological requirements throughout its life. The organism which provides the parasite with all the necessary resources, it is known as the host. Usually, the parasites cannot survive without the association or with their host. On removal from the host, the parasite dies. Parasitism is therefore a very intimate and continuous interspecific association in which one organism lives within or upon another for its biological requirements. A parasite depends on its host for its growth, reproduction and survival. Parasitism is of course an antagonistic way of life. In this, one organism uses another one of a different species. It is used as a habitat, as a source of food, energy and other basic biological requirements, and the host is negatively impacted. Thus, it involves an intimate association, and the parasite establishes and reproduces in the host internal environment. Compromises are done between both the parasite and its host for the extraction of the required biological materials which are necessary for the maintenance of the parasite. As the parasite lives inside the host, it can cause several effects on the host. Parasite can cause destruction of host tissue, induce sterility, death rate and affect nutritional status of the host. As the parasite is a foreign body in the host will try to eliminate it or to overpower them. It will be producing antibodies and diseases like diarrhea, mucus secretion and so on. Parasites will of course try to avoid the host reaction, and it will develop many specializations like increased fecundity, polyembryony and of course different mechanisms for transmission. This is called as the host parasitic interaction. In due time what happens is a mutual adjustment develops in between the parasite and the host, and that permits them to live together. A successful parasite usually will never kill the host, but it lives in harmony with it, and as the death of the host will lead to its own death, that is the reason for that. However, infectious parasites would try to kill the host, but this itself will lead to the elimination of the most virulent species by nature itself. Now, let us discuss about parasitism, and it has immense ecological importance. Let us just discuss about them. Ecologically, parasitism is very significant as it helps in regulating the population size and also in maintaining the balance of nature. They mutually control the population size and ensure the continuous coexistence of both the host and the parasite. A shift in the equilibrium in any one direction would be disadvantageous to both the host and the parasite. Thus, the host and the population size of the parasite is always in a state of dynamic equilibrium. Therefore, the growth of the parasitic population is directly proportional to the growth of the host population, but the growth of host population is inversely proportional to the growth of the parasitic population. The main reason for this is that the host is simply the habitat of the parasite. Nearly 300 species are parasitic to humans. However, all parasites do not cause diseases. The disease causing parasites are known as the pathogenic parasites or the pathogens. Coming to the features of parasites, to be able to live in a host, it has to acquire some specific features. In order to live in the host, the parasite has to acquire several specialized features. Now, let us discuss about the features of the parasite. Parasites are specialized for the extreme resource utilization. They encounter numerous problems due to their peculiar lifestyle. All the parasites develop similar or same mechanisms, that is, for recognizing and approaching the host, for reaching the presence of the host, for reacting to its presence, for gaining access, for tolerating it and for resisting host internal environment, and also for getting transferred from one host to the other. Some of the common features are the following, that is, first of all, infectiousness. Infectiousness, it is the ability of a parasite to enter into a host and to tolerate and resist the internal environment of the host for the parasitic establishment, its multiplication and survival. If parasites have one or more than one kind of host, then there will be separate infectious stages. It is specific for a particular host. The next one is establishment. It is the attainment of physiological fitness by the parasite for growth, reproduction, survival within the host, and also for harmonizing its physiological functions with the homeostatic mechanism of the host. Thus, establishment essentially involves metabolic modification of the parasite. Like in Ascaris, Ascaris has modifications for an anaerobic life in the oxygen free human intestine. Another one feature is transmission, which is very much important. Transmission is the transfer of a parasite from one host to the other. Transmission is of two major categories, that is active transmission and passive transmission. Active transmission is the process that involves direct or penetrative transmission. In this case, the parasite directly penetrates into the host body by its own powers. This is common among hookworms, blood fluke and so on. In passive transmission, it is the transmission of parasite in the form of eggs, larva or cyst of the parasite, and these are transferred to a new host by passive mechanisms. There are three major kinds of passive transmission, that is contaminative transmission, inoculative transmission and contact transmission. The first one is contaminative transmission. In this, the parasite is passively ingested by the host along with either food or water in the form of eggs or cyst of the parasite. One of the major examples of contaminated transmission is the case of Entamoeba histolytica. In this case, the parasite enters inside the host in the form of cyst through contaminated water or food. Inoculative transmission is the process in which infective parasites are passively injected in the host by biting insect. An example is female Anopheles mosquito spreading malaria. The next one is contact transmission. In contact transmission, the parasites are transferred from one host to another during sexual contact between hosts. For example, Entamoeba gingivalis is transferred during oral kissing, and Trichomonas vaginalis and parasites which cause syphilis, gonorrhea are transmitted during sexual contact. Now, let us discuss about the risks of parasitic transmission. The chances of parasitic transmission to be successful is very rare. This is because parasite often they have to overcome several kinds of exposures, threats and difficulties, and thus the probabilities of parasite reaching the host is very less. Parasites have developed different techniques to overcome this challenge. They produce large number of eggs, young ones, so that at least some of them might emerge successful. In the case of tapeworms, the reproductive power is enhanced by multiple reproductive organs. Flukes, on the other hand, they have high potentiality for polyembryony or multiple twinning. Now, let us discuss about the physiological features common to the parasite. As far as a parasite are concerned, glucose or glycogen is the main source of energy to produce ATP. As we all know, parasites live in an environment which is rich with sugars, and by anaerobic metabolism they produce ATP and also produce partially oxidized materials, that is metabolic products like lactic acid or fatty acids. Parasites are incapable of utilizing fat as their energy source. They have lost their biosynthetic powers due to the suppression or loss of metabolic pathways. Their osmotic concentration is equal to or lower than that of the host for absorption of nutrients. They produce hydrolyzing enzymes to digest host tissue. Blood feeding parasites produce anticoagulants to prevent clotting. High resistance to toxins or metabolites of host is another one important feature. Now, let us discuss about the effects of parasites on the host. Destruction of host tissue, that is by necrosis, means the persistent cell degeneration, the cells are degenerated. In hyperplasia, increased rate of cell division results from an increased level of cell metabolism. Hypertrophy, that is increase in cell size. Metaplasia, change of one type of tissue into another. Neoplasia, it is the growth of cells in a tissue to form a new structure like a tumor. Nutritional deficiency in host by absorbing sugars, vitamins, amino acids and so on. Anti-enzyme production by intestinal parasites, it lessens the host digestion. Sex reversal is also seen. Gonads of parasitized hosts may change leading to the sex reversal. An example is the effect of crab when parasitized by Sacculina. Parasitic castration, it is the destruction of host gonadal tissue by a parasite. Toxin production, that is specific toxins are produced or secreted by parasites, causing irritation and damage to the host. Now, let us discuss about the parasitic adaptations. Parasite system needs structural and functional adaptations. The parasitic adaptations fall under three main categories, that is degeneration, specialization and neoformation. Degeneration means it is the reduction and disappearance of any structure that are no longer useful for the parasitic life. An example for parasitic degeneration, it is seen in Sacculina, that is crustacean parasite on crab. This parasite is only a tumor like fleshy mass as it is seen in the image. It is without segmentation, appendages, internal organs and sense organs in its adult stage. Another feature is the specialization, means structural and functional modifications of certain parts of the parasite to meet its mode of life. Neoformation means it includes the formation of new structures. The more the degree of parasitism, the greater would be the morphological and physiological deviations of the parasite. Major adaptations of endoparasites are reduction or loss of locomotor structures, digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system and nervous system, and the absence of digestive glands and specialized sense organ. This is seen mainly in parasites that are permanently stationed in a host body, where there are changing conditions and plenty of nutrients for its requirements, but no or little oxygen supply. Another one is development of adhesive organs like hooks, suckers, then bothria, that is the sucking grooves in scolex of tapeworms, bothridia, which is a cup shaped muscular outgrowth from the scolex of tapeworms to attach itself to the specific part of the host body. Another one feature is development of resistant and protective covering such as tegument and cuticle, and the production of anti-enzymes that will resist the host enzyme and other chemicals. Another feature is high tolerance against chemicals, pH and temperature of the host internal environment. Greater ability to survive in the absence of or meager availability of oxygen is another one important adaptation. Hermaphroditism is seen in many, and this renders easy sexual reproduction. Multiple reproductive organs is also seen in many organisms, and this will increase reproductive rate in order to produce large number of individuals. Now, this compensates high mortality and it also ensures the propagation and survival of the parasite. Polyembryony and parthenogenesis are also seen. This will enhance multiplication of the individuals. Various forms of periodicity like diurnal periodicity, nocturnal periodicity and seasonal periodicity that allows synchronization of parasite activities with activities and habitats of host is seen in many organisms. Like nocturnal periodicity of microfilaria, it corresponds with the nocturnal habit of Culex mosquito. Now, let us discuss about the host parasite specificity. There are various degrees of specificity in host parasite relation. In many cases, a particular parasite inhabits a few host species only. Now, this is called as relative host specificity. In some extreme cases, it is seen that a parasite species, it inhabits only a particular species, a specific host, and this is called as absolute host specificity. The degree of host specificity, it is related to two factors, that is degree of interaction between the life pattern of parasite and the host, the degree of the physical, chemical, physiological compatibility between the parasite and its host. So, modification of feeding pattern in human beings, it can lead to the acquisition of new parasite or the avoidance of some parasites. That is, for example, we can take the case of tapeworms. Infection of tapeworms in human beings, it depends upon man's habit of eating improperly cooked beef or pork. Similarly, habit of eating undercooked fish, it makes them a host of several parasites which use fish as an intermediate host. But on the other hand, eating highly boiled and properly cooked fish and meat, it may lead to the exclusion of this parasite. Physical, chemical and physiological incompatibility between the host and the parasite, it results in the failure of providing appropriate stimuli to the parasite for its establishment. In such a situation, it will lead to death of the parasite. The quality and the timing of these are very important in the establishment of the parasite. Now, coming to the classification of parasite based on their location in the host, we can divide it as endoparasitic or ectoparasitic. Parasites can be classified as endoparasites and ectoparasites based on where they are found in the host. Endoparasite, as the name indicates, these are parasites that reside inside the host body, and ectoparasites resides on the body surface of the host. The classification of parasite into endoparasite and ectoparasite is a broad classification. Classification of parasite based on the dependence of parasitic life, we can also divide them as so. Parasites can be classified as obligate parasites, facultative parasites, erratic parasites based on the duration of parasitic life cycle. Endoparasites are mostly obligate parasites and they have morphological adaptations based on their life cycle. Obligate parasites are those that spend their entire life as a pathogen. Facultative pathogens are acting as pathogens only in some occasions. Obligatory parasites is this type of parasite depends entirely upon their host. They need their host for its nourishment, reproduction, habitat and survival. They have evolved a variety of parasitic strategies to exploit these hosts. Viruses are obligate parasites. They obtain protein and nutrition from their host body, and to get the proteins they take control of the host protein synthetic mechanism. They spread very fast inside the host due to the availability of proteins, and they are in constant search of the protein synthesizing sites of the host. Bacteria are also example for obligate parasites. Obligate bacterial parasites are pneumococci, mycoplasmas. These type of bacteria are hard to grow in culture medium as they need their host for survival, and thus very less information is available on them. Other examples for obligate parasites are Rickettsia, Taenia solium, Trichinella, flatworms, tapeworms, roundworms, Plasmodium and so on. They all require eukaryotic host cells to survive. Head lice are also an example for obligate parasite. If they are removed from the scalp, they die immediately. Facultative parasitism. The facultative parasites can act as parasites, but does not completely spend their life as parasite and thus does not require a host to complete their life cycle. They can live without a host and act as a parasite only when the conditions require or when the opportunity arises for them. They can live both as a parasite and as a non-parasite too. Many plants, fungi, animals and microbes, they act as facultative parasites, and an example for this is Strongyloides. This is a type of nematode and it is seen in human intestine, and it causes strongyloidosis, and it can also be seen as a free living roundworm. Now, coming to parasitoids, a parasitoid is an organism that has a larva that lives inside or on another organism, that is its host. The larva eventually come out of the organism or the host eventually killing it. The adult are free living. Thus, they have both free living and parasitic lifestyle. Parasitoids, they infect their host by laying their eggs on their host. They have the following characteristics, that is, they are smaller than their host, then they attack only a particular life stage of a host. Adults are either predators or nectar feeders. Only females are involved in the parasitoid life cycle. The host dies when the young ones are fully grown. Now, examples for parasitoids are wasps, then there is tachinid flies, beetles and worms. Now, let us summarize this module. In this module, we have discussed about parasitism and the different methods of host-parasite interactions. It is said that a successful parasite is one which does not kill and utilizes its host in the optimum manner for its resources. For this, the parasites have developed various methods of adaptations like degenerations, neoformations and specializations. The major transmission method of parasites are active transmission and passive transmission. Passive transmission includes contaminative transmission, inoculative transmission and contact transmission. Knowing the adaptation of a parasite and understanding its life cycle is very important in order to inhibit its spread, and thus parasitology is important to understand the diseases that human beings face today. We can come up with better strategies to overcome the parasitic infestation to save millions of lives. So, let me conclude this session. We will be meeting very soon in another one session. Thank you.